My name is Elias Mercer, and today I'm going to tell you about the day my entire life shattered in silence. What began as a simple trip home from the hospital turned into the moment I discovered betrayal so deep it stripped away everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. Stay with me until the end, because what I uncovered that night didn't just change my marriage, it rewrote my future. But before I start, take a second to hit subscribe and share in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps me strong and gives me the drive to bring you more real stories that expose the side of life most people never talk about. Elias returned home a day earlier than planned, thinking he'd surprise his wife, Clara Winslow. The nurse at the Veterans Wellness Center had smiled politely when she handed him the discharge papers. "Doctor signed off, you're free to go," she'd said. 4 nights in that sterile room, recovering from a cardiac procedure, had left him drained. Machines had hummed endlessly, lights had flickered overhead, and through it all, Clara never showed. She only sent one short message, claiming hospitals made her uneasy. But excuses weren't what hurt. Her silence was. On the ride back, the city blurred beyond the cab's window while Elias's thoughts dragged like heavy stones. He pictured sunlight spilling across the kitchen floor, the faint scent of Clara's perfume still clinging to the throw pillows, the warmth of their bed. He told himself maybe she'd be glad to see him. Maybe relief would soften her eyes. Instead, when the cab rolled into the driveway, his chest tightened. Clara's crossover was parked crookedly across the bricks as if she'd rushed inside without a thought. That wasn't like her. She was always precise, almost obsessed with appearances. The sight stirred a knot beneath his healing stitches. Inside, the downstairs was dark. No food simmered on the stove, no music floated through the rooms. Only a faint glow pulsed from upstairs. Something inside Elias warned him to stay quiet. He climbed the steps slowly, each creak of the wood heavier than the last, until he stood at the door of their bedroom. It was slightly open, light spilling through in warped tones. He pushed gently. Part of him hoped the room would be empty, but it wasn't. Clara lay tangled in bed with a man he'd never seen. The mattress, they'd picked it out together 6 years earlier, now cradled a betrayal he could feel in his bones. Clara's laughter, breathless and sharp, stabbed deeper than any blade. His pillow was tossed carelessly aside. Their framed anniversary picture on the nightstand tilted awkwardly, like it too had witnessed the scene. Elias didn't cry out. He didn't storm in. The ache inside him wasn't fiery. It was hollow, a gnawing emptiness that echoed in his chest. They didn't notice him, too consumed by their moment, too certain he wouldn't be there. 15 seconds crawled past before Elias stepped back, steady and deliberate. No rage, no drama, just silence. He descended the stairs with the same careful calm he'd once used crossing minefields. Outside, the cab still idled. The driver glanced over. "Rough day?" he asked. "Midtown," Elias murmured. His voice barely carried. As they pulled away, Elias didn't look back. He let the stillness of deceit surround him, not as peace, but as a warning of the storm to come. The surgical ache in his chest was nothing compared to the sharp clarity burning inside him now. The woman in that room was no longer the wife he had married. By the time the cab stopped 25 minutes later in front of a modest brick building wedged between taller offices, Elias had made up his mind. He stepped out, a travel satchel slung over his shoulder, a clinic wrist tag still on his arm. His friend Na, then Cole, a legal advisor who owed him favors from years past, looked up in surprise when Elias entered unannounced. "You're supposed to be resting," Nathan said. "Circumstances shifted," Elias replied, his tone flat. He sat down, pulled a dark binder from his bag, and placed it on the desk like a weapon. "She's been unfaithful," Elias said, steady and unblinking. "I saw them. In my bed." Nathan Cole froze, his brow creasing. "Clara, with some professor," Elias Mercer said flatly. Didn't bother to ask his name. Didn't need to. His voice was steady, deliberate, the kind of calm that unsettled men who knew storms hid beneath it. He tapped the dark binder once. "Everything you need is there." Nathan opened the file carefully, page after page unfolding. Bank ledgers, property transfers, Trust documents, signed authority papers, account summaries, a quiet history of preparation. You moved it all? Months ago, Nathan said, glancing up. Elias gave a single nod. The house, the business, the savings, shifted, consolidated, locked. She still believes she has access. Nathan leaned back, exhaling through his nose. She has no clue you were already 5 steps ahead. She never paid attention, Elias said coldly. Now she'll learn what ignorance costs. Nathan's respect grew as he flipped through more pages. You made the company a trust last year and left yourself as the only beneficiary. And she never changed her authority documents after the wedding? I made sure she believed she didn't have to, Elias said. His gaze was steel. She wanted the illusion of control. I gave it to her. And now? Nathan asked. Now I want the divorce filed today, papers in her hand before she even realizes her accounts are frozen. Restraining orders too? Yes. And flag the joint account. She's been siphoning money, including federal veteran support payments. That qualifies for federal review. Nathan muttered under his breath. You're going scorched earth. Elias stood. No. I'm not burning anything down. I'm protecting what's mine. He paused, then locked eyes with Nathan. She made her decision. I'll make sure she lives with it. Nathan reached for his phone. Give me 3 hours. I'll be back, Elias said. Keep it between us. He walked out, not like a man weakened by surgery, but like a soldier rising from battle. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was the first calculated move in a game Clara Winslow never even realized she was playing. By late afternoon, Elias's house had already begun its transformation. The locksmith arrived within hours. Every lock on every door was changed. The garage system was reprogrammed. The security panel reset, her birthday code erased forever. Clara's access was scrubbed from the system. No warnings, no alerts. Just silence and precision. Elias moved methodically, collecting every spare key, updating hidden lockbox codes. This wasn't a burst of anger, it was a transition. Quiet. Absolute. Next came the money. Within minutes of his request, the joint account was frozen. The remaining $26,000 shifted into a private trust account Clara didn't even know existed. Months earlier, Elias had been quietly diverting dividends and income there. The banker, a woman with sharp eyes, didn't flinch. She's been using the card like it's bottomless, Elias explained calmly. She hasn't checked the balance today, but she will. The banker nodded, printed the confirmation, and slid it across. You're not the first to do this, she said softly. But you might be the most prepared. Not prepared, Elias replied. Just finished pretending. Then came the car. Clara always flaunted the crossover as hers, boasting about the heated seats and rear sensors. But Elias held the lease under his name, and with one signature, he triggered the buyback clause he'd secured. The dealership arranged to retrieve the vehicle that same afternoon. No confrontation, just gone. As twilight fell, Elias sat in the passenger seat of Nathan's ash-gray SUV, sipping coffee, watching. Across the street, Clara approached the house with Owen Hale, her smug companion. They laughed easily, carelessly. She pulled her small handbag open, fished out her key, and slid it into the door. It didn't turn. She tried again. Nothing. Confusion flickered across her face. Owen stepped forward with a spare she'd given him. Useless, too. Clara banged on the door, her voice rising. Elias, open up. This isn't a joke. Elias didn't move. Nathan handed him the coffee. You good? Elias nodded once. Let her shout. Owen's voice joined in, louder, annoyed. Man, don't make this worse. We're not here to fight. Elias drank slowly, eyes blank, his calm deeper than rage. Clara's panic sharpened. Her card had already failed at the gas station, Owen's too. She didn't know yet, but every door was already closed. Elias, please. Clara's voice carried faintly through the night air. Elias set the empty coffee cup in Nathan's console and turned. "We're leaving now." As the SUV rolled away, he looked back once. Clara had crumpled on the steps, her shoulders trembling. Owen Hale stood off to the side, his face glowing from the light of his phone, likely searching for a way to fix what couldn't be fixed. Elias didn't smile. He didn't gesture. He didn't gloat. He simply observed, then faced forward, voice steady. "Game over. No shouting, no broken glass, no bitter exchange. Just quiet removal." This wasn't fury. It was reclamation. He was no longer the victim. The board was his to command. The next morning, Elias sat outside on the city lodge terrace, watching the world bustle around him. Early commuters hurried past with paper cups and earbuds, chasing their routines. The golden light slid between the towers. Elias felt nothing. No sting, no hollow ache. Just clarity. His phone vibrated, again and again. 10 missed calls from Clara Winslow, 5 from an unfamiliar number, 1 voicemail waiting. He ignored them. He already knew the script. Excuses, staged worry, false tears, none of it mattered. Instead, Elias opened his laptop and logged into the secure portal Nathan had arranged. The checklist was nearly complete. Divorce papers filed. Petition for a temporary restraining order submitted, supported by digital recordings. Yes, he had reviewed them. Clara hadn't even drawn the blinds. The hallway camera had captured her laughter, the shifting bed, the betrayal etched in timestamps. Enough for court, but more importantly, enough for him. Next came the civil action. Clara had drained thousands from their joint savings. The trail showed clear diversions, and worse, some of it came from his federal veteran support payments, funds legally protected. She either ignored that or didn't care. It gave Elias the standing to file for fraud. If she repaid, it stayed civil. If not, it escalated to felony theft. Either path ended the same. She lost. Then Elias opened another draft, addressed to the Academic Standards Office and Compliance Ethics Board at the university where Clara worked part-time and Owen held tenure. The message was brief, factual, loaded with attachments, calendar entries showing Clara's personal visits during work hours, GPS records placing her in Owen's office, receipts for meals, gas, even a short-term rental, all charged to the joint account. The implication was undeniable. A professor entangled with a staff member, both exploiting university time and resources. Policy violation territory, scandal. He attached the evidence and clicked send. Within 2 hours, the reply arrived. "Thank you for your report. This matter has been escalated for immediate review." That was enough. He didn't need the fallout. The first domino was already tipping. Later, see, Laura's text arrived. "Please, we need to talk. This has gotten out of control. We never meant to hurt you." Elias almost laughed. They hadn't meant to hurt him. They'd simply believed he'd crumble. Instead, they found silence sharpened into strategy. Owen's trail was already exposed. Transfers from the joint account to his PayWave account, some labeled thank you or weekend away. Rookie mistakes. Traceable. Elias didn't need revenge. He needed truth organized. Affidavits, timestamps, violations, paperwork that spoke louder than fists ever could. By nightfall, the storm no longer churned inside him. It spread outward, into court filings, inboxes, HR offices. And Elias sat quietly, sipping black coffee, reading the final line of the university's follow-up. If confirmed, disciplinary action may include suspension or termination. That would do. Sunday afternoon arrived heavy with staged suburban calm. Elias pulled into the Winslow residence, the hedges manicured, porch decked with seasonal ornaments, mailbox gleaming like it had never tasted a late bill. He stepped out in a dark shirt and slacks, carrying only a slim, dark binder. The door opened before he could knock. Clara stood there in faded jeans, stripped of her polished mask. Her face drained when she saw him. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Elias's voice was even. I brought something for your parents." And just like that, Margaret Winslow appeared behind her daughter, her eyes narrowing, a curling grin sliding across her face like judgment long rehearsed. "Oh, so the ghost returns." Margaret Winslow's voice carried that same curling grin Elias had heard 100 times before. He didn't flinch. "May I come in?" Clara hesitated, but Margaret tilted her head. "It's fine. Let the man speak." They led him into the living room. Raymond Winslow sat sunk in his recliner, half flipping through a lifestyle magazine, pretending to read. Elias remained standing. 5 minutes, Clara muttered. "Less," he promised. He set the dark binder on the glass table, opened it, and laid out the first sheet, a printed spreadsheet showing $41,500 in unauthorized withdrawals, dates, times, notes. One transfer clearly marked weekend cabin, funneled straight into Owen Hale's PayWave account. "This," Elias said evenly, eyes locked on Raymond, "is how your daughter used our savings." The next paper slid across, an email from the Compliance Ethics Board confirming an investigation into Clara and Owen. "They used school property, school hours, and your daughter's position to make their affair more convenient," Elias said, never breaking eye contact. The third document hit harder, a notarized property record dated 5 weeks before the lockout. Elias tapped the signature line. "The house is legally transferred. My cousin Daniel Brooks leased it back to me short-term, which means every night Clara spent inside after the locks were changed. She was trespassing." Margaret's face twisted. "You're bluffing." Elias didn't answer. He simply turned the page toward Raymond. The older man's brows tightened as he read, lips pressed thin. Clara began to tremble, arms folded tightly across her chest. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," she whispered. "Good," Elias replied. "Then you'll understand I'm also filing to recover the stolen funds and misuse of veteran support payments. That's a federal felony." He placed the final page down, a loan relief cancellation form. "For the past 20 months, I've been covering your mortgage quietly. I plan to surprise you with a payoff in December. Not anymore." Margaret's grin died. Raymond dropped the magazine. Clara's eyes shimmered with something close to regret, but Elias didn't care. "For 11 years, I worked. I paid. I defended her when no one else did. And when I came home from the hospital, I found her in my bed with another man." He turned to Margaret. "And you always pushed this. You never thought I was enough. Well, now I've finally met your expectations." Elias closed the binder, tucked it beneath his arm, and walked toward the door. Behind him, voices erupted, Clara pleading, Margaret sobbing, Raymond shouting. He didn't turn back. He opened the door, stepped out, and shut it quietly behind him. This wasn't revenge. It was the truth, delivered with documents, not anger. He didn't need their approval. He only needed them to understand that everything they once mocked had now risen above them. The silence that followed carried more weight than any confrontation. Weeks passed. Elias said nothing. Not to Clara, not to her parents, not to anyone in her circle. He didn't have to. The fallout was already unraveling, thread by thread. It began with the eviction notice. Clara ignored the warnings until 2 deputies nailed the order to the front door and gave her 24 hours to vacate. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains as she cried, begged, and finally packed in shame. Owen wasn't there to help. He was drowning in his own collapse. The university acted swiftly. The Title IX report and attached evidence forced an immediate suspension. Within days, his tenure was revoked, his pension stripped. Faculty boards buzzed with leaked screenshots, emails, photos, time-stamped visits. His career collapsed overnight. But the sharpest blow came from Elena Hale. She hadn't known, until she opened a tan legal folder mailed anonymously. Inside were selfies, receipts, and one cruel message from Clara's phone. "He makes me feel alive again." Elena filed for divorce within a week. Clara's spiral deepened. Her parents stopped taking her calls. Margaret abandoned her Garden Lodge luncheons. Raymond quit his weekly golf rounds. Their social circle whispered relentlessly. Creditors called daily now that Elias had stopped Covey, airing their payments. Clara bounced between couches before settling for a one-bedroom near a strip mall. And then came the final indignity. The job. Not admin, not faculty support, but retail. A name tag at Housemart. Folding towels beneath fluorescent lights. The same kind of job Clara once sneered at others for. That's where she ended up. That's what you do when you lack ambition, she had once posted online. Now she wore the apron, scanned barcodes, and forced a smile under fluorescent lights. She tried to reshape the story. On social media, Clara painted herself as the wounded one. Vague quotes about gaslighting, half-lit selfies with captions about healing, and endless claims that Elias had abandoned her without compassion. She accused him of using his connections to ruin her life. At first, the sympathy came. Heart emojis, supportive messages, friends reassuring her she'd rise again. And then, one comment shifted it all. A burner account appeared beneath one of her posts. Didn't you mock your disabled husband while sleeping with your affair partner in his bed, planning to include that in your next post too? The reaction was instant, dozens of likes, then shares. People began questioning, unfollowing. Some deleted her entirely. The carefully polished image she clung to collapsed beneath undeniable truth. Elias never commented again. He didn't need to. He simply watched the unraveling from afar. No interviews, no gloating, just silence. Purposeful, unshakable silence. This wasn't joy. It wasn't anger. It was finality. And Clara? She was finally alone. Not the temporary loneliness after a fight, but the kind that comes when every lie burns away and leaves you stranded in the ashes. She had built her own prison, and no one else remained. 10 months later, Elias woke to the soft lap of water against the dock outside his cabin. The dawn was pale gold, the air cool and clean, the bird song unbroken. His cabin was modest. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a stone fireplace. Nothing excessive, but everything he needed. Set near Pinecrest Lake, close to the Veterans Wellness Center, it offered him peace he hadn't known in years. He fished some mornings, not for the catch but for the calm. Other afternoons he volunteered, helping veterans with paperwork, housing applications, or simply listening. He understood the weight they carried, not just from war, but from betrayal. With Nathan Cole's guidance, Elias had founded a nonprofit 6 months earlier, quietly serving military families. It was funded by donations, his own contributions, and one court-ordered deposit, $5,600 transferred every month without fail. Clara's restitution for the money she had siphoned, including funds from his veteran benefits. He never touched it personally. Every cent went to the nonprofit, not out of spite, but because broken things, if redirected, could build something good. Sometimes people asked if he missed her. He always answered the same. I don't miss her. I miss who I thought she was. He hadn't seen Clara since that day in the Winslow living room. He didn't know where she lived now, and he didn't care. The payments arrived, but her presence never did. Early on, she tried reaching through her lawyer. Elias never replied. There was nothing left worth saying. And surprisingly, he carried no hatred. Rage had once seemed inevitable. But one quiet morning, standing on the dock as mist curled from the lake, he realized. Hatred is a chain. Forgiveness isn't a gift to the one who wronged you. It's the bolt cutter that frees you. He didn't excuse Clara. He didn't absolve her. But he released her. She would never return, never get a second A-key. I had some people destroy their own chance, and the strongest response is simply walking away. Inside, the nonprofit's quarterly report sat printed on his table. 5 families assisted, 1 veteran reunited with his children, another secured emergency housing. Elias read each name slowly, quietly proud. They'd never know the story behind the funding, and they didn't need to. Later that day, he walked the gravel trail to a wooden bench overlooking the water. The breeze was soft, his heart steady. For the first time, he wasn't looking back. People mistake silence for weakness. They think peace means surrender. Elias knew better. He had been the quietest man in the room, and he had won, through truth, not rage. This wasn't revenge. it was closed. And closure, when earned, is the loudest silence of all. Some betrayals don't deserve confrontation, they deserve consequences. Elias Mercer's story proves that strength doesn't shout, and dignity can't be stolen unless you hand it over. In silence, he reclaimed his life. Through strategy, he built peace. And by walking away without looking back, he left a lesson. Healing doesn't begin when they apologize. It begins the moment you stop waiting for it. Closure isn't revenge, it's choosing yourself without their permission. So if you've ever been broken, remember this. You don't need to burn down their house, you just have to stop letting them live in yours. If you are connected with this story, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. And when you're ready, click on the next story waiting for you here. Thank you for listening.